An aging icon hanging up his sneakers, an ascending prodigy from the Midwest, and a media machine fully fueled, ready to turn the attention of an entire nation towards one exuberantly talented high schooler, LeBron James. We've seen phenoms before. High-flying prospects and prodigious talents came and went, but this one was different. A high school junior graced the cover of Sports Illustrated with the words "The Chosen One" stamped across his chest. Before his senior prom, before his high school diploma, before his shoulders had even fully broadened, the weight of the basketball world was thrust upon him. It wasn't just hype, it was a cultural shift, a declaration that sports would no longer wait for young athletes to build their legacies. We could crown them whenever we wanted, and just as easily, we could call them failures the moment they fell short of the impossible expectations we placed on them. It felt like a trap, but against all odds, LeBron became LeBron. He carried the weight, exceeded the hype, and redefined what a generational talent could look like. He inspired millions of kids across the world and cemented himself as the chosen one. Now, what did this mean for the future? The media bet big on a teenager and hit the jackpot. Would every talented high school prospect now have to be the next LeBron? Did they have to carry that same impossible weight or be labeled a failure? The answer was sadly yes. LeBron's success proved that it was possible. Rare but possible for one individual to shoulder the unbearable, and so the media machine doubled down. The next teenager who dunked from near the free throw line or showed flashes of brilliance was plastered across magazine covers, blasted on the TV, and anointed before they even played a meaningful game. The same system that crowned LeBron was now building up kids, not to see them succeed, but to fuel a relentless content machine, one that keeps churning whether the players rise to greatness or crumble under the weight. Why wait for legacies to form when you can manufacture them instead? The LeBron Effect. They didn't have to look far for their next star in the making. Just south in the Bluegrass State, a man amongst boys was bullying calculus students and D1 prospects alike. OJ Mayo had it. That overused, unspecific quality we've all agreed that means you're special. The kid who grew into the nickname Grocery List was a one-of-a-kind guard. He could bully you, blow by you, or hit a one-dribble pull-up that made you look foolish for even contesting. As an 8th grader, Mayo averaged 27 points per game for his high school team and earned first-team All-State honors. When he transferred to North College Hill in Ohio, newspapers sent TV crews to cover his first day of school. The hype train was already roaring. It only picked up steam. Mayo became the second sophomore in Ohio history to win Mr. Basketball. And you already know who the first was. Magazine covers, relentless publicity, and the fateful title, The Next LeBron James. Here he was, another once-in-a-life talent just a few years after the last one. And just like before, the expectations were limitless. When decision time came, the jewel of the class chose USC. Trojan fans dreamed of hardwood glory to match the success they'd seen on the gridiron. His one season in LA was complex. Mayo's production was undeniable. 20 points per game on 40% from 3. He was everything they said he was. Polished, skilled, and confident. But rumblings of unhappy teammates lingered, and some wondered if he would hold up as an elite athlete at the professional level. Still, he had just enough juice to be the 3rd overall pick, landing in Memphis after a draft day trade. His rookie campaign was an overwhelming success. The high-scoring guard didn't skip a beat. Elite athlete or not, the guy just knew how to put the ball in the bucket. After finishing 2nd in the Rookie of the Year voting, it seemed like everything might just work itself out. Then came the speed bumps, a suspension for a banned substance, a fight with Tony Allen over a card game, and public frustration with a 6-man role soured his time in Memphis. From there, Mayo struggled to find his footing. He had flashes in Dallas and Milwaukee, but another violation of the NBA's drug policy ended his career for good. Just like that, it was over. The kid from Cincinnati stumbled, lost momentum, and the weight of the unrealistic expectations crushed him. It wasn't fair. Mayo should have had the chance to grow, to battle through the ups and downs of a pro career. The clock started ticking the moment you crowned the next LeBron. Mayo kept stride for a year, but the second he faltered, the headlines turned on him. Maybe he wasn't the next LeBron, but the same system that hyped his arrival thrived just as much in dissecting his downfall. Give John Calipari an athletic lead guard and watch Michelangelo set the angel inside the marble free. Tyreek Evans wasn't the national sensation that OJ Mayo was. He was a top 5 player in his class and a prized national recruit that had all basketball powerhouses blowing up his phone. But there were no outlandish titles or brazen magazine covers. And in the same city that saw Mayo begin his descent, Reek went to work building a legacy of his own. Evans was often running, a bruising slasher with a ridiculous burst. Defending Tyreek Evans was like taking body shots for 9 rounds from a heavyweight prize fighter. You might still be standing, but you sure as hell were worse for wear. The Tigers wouldn't lose another game until the Sweet 16 with Reek at the helm, propelling him into the top 5 of the upcoming draft where he would find a home in sunny Sacramento. And then his rookie year happened. 20 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists, a historically rare level of production matched only by Oscar Robinson, Michael Jordan, and most recently, LeBron James. That was it. That was the spark they needed, all the ammunition necessary to build up the next big thing. That summer, Evans was everywhere, a regular topic for talk shows, a front-page darling, and a perennial favorite to be the next face of the league. But Reek's pro readiness stemmed from having a frame that was further along, already prepared for the much more physical nature of the NBA game. It helped in an immediate sense, but there wasn't really much room for growth in his game. To make matters worse, he was no longer playing the point guard position that had catalyzed his success. He was back at the 2, and without a reliable jump shot to threaten defenders, he was all alone on the extended wing, forced to go to work without being able to weaponize the playmaking that he built his career on in the first place. A lot went into his stardom stalling in Sacramento, but the storylines didn't care about the nuance. They had built him up, invested heavily knowing that one day they would return and reap what they had sown. Now enough time had passed for the reality to become clear. Tyreek Evans may have been a reliable and valuable weapon in the league, but he wasn't the next face of it. So he would be kicked around until he was forgotten, before a violation of the league's anti-substance rules put an end to his career for good. For the sake of accuracy, Evans' career didn't end in Sacramento. He was a high-level contributor for the Pelicans, and even registered one strong season back in Memphis before the end of his career. But upper echelon six-men and unorthodox point forwards don't drive engagement. Only great heroes or great disappointments. There's no room for anything in between. No matter where you are or where you're from, if you love basketball, you remember the Andrew Wiggins summer. From the cold, wintry front of the great nation of Canada rose a 6'8" super athlete with a vertical that looked fictitious or augmented. Whether he was reinventing high school dunks, sending shots out of the gym, or keeping defenses honest with a silky smooth fadeaway, there was enough on that legendary mixtape to conjure comparisons to any name you could imagine. After settling on the hallowed grounds of Lawrence, Kansas to continue his career, Wiggins routinely flashed his otherworldly potential, cementing his status as the #1 prospect in the country and an eventual top pick in the draft. Up in Minnesota, Wiggins got to work chasing those transcendent goals set for him. A Rookie of the Year campaign, followed by 2 consecutive years of steady growth, bought him some time. But those sharks in the press swimming pool were waiting. There wasn't a singular moment or season that could be capitalized on and taken advantage of. But as the years went by and it grew increasingly apparent that Wiggins would not be an all-NBA talent, the media apparatus got moving. He was too soft. He didn't have an edge. He lacked the killer instinct necessary to be a star in this league. These critiques followed him right out of Minnesota and into Golden State. Dedicated fans will remember his invaluable performance for the Dubs in the 2022 finals, a defensive masterpiece against an elite wing duo, and a compilation of tough, clutch shot-making down the stretch. But even that wouldn't be enough to repair a reputation that had already been artificially inflated just so it could actually be torn down. Wiggs is still doing his thing in the Bay, a valuable and complementary two-way wing that 95% of NBA teams would be happy to have. But when your high school mixtape takes over the world, winning player and high-level defender just don't move the needle. Whether he wanted it or not, it was boom or bust from the moment his high-flying theatrics excited basketball fans everywhere. Either do something bigger or just be known as the guy who couldn't follow it up. You don't earn a nickname like the Prince on accident. After setting the high school basketball world on fire at the storied Montverde Academy, Ben Simmons became the new fixation. A supersized point forward with elite vision, creative flair, and ridiculous athleticism. This had to be it. The reincarnation of the overpowering, over-intelligent visionary that captivated the basketball world over a decade ago. The Aussie had it all. He could bully his matchups underneath the basket or blow right by them. And if a teammate got open for even a second, the ball was perfectly in his shot pocket, off of some ambitious bounce pass. His one season at LSU was almost flawless on paper. Simmons put up absurd numbers, averaging nearly 20 points, 12 boards, and 5 assists per game. The almost flawless still leaves some room for criticism. The Tigers missed the tournament, allowing some talking heads to question the 18-year-old's competitive drive. Still, his talent was undeniable, and league executives scrambled to find ways to lose games for a shot at drafting him. A foot injury sidelined him for what would have been his rookie season, but the next year he emphatically stamped his arrival. Alongside Joel Embiid in Philly, Simmons looked like one half of a one-of-a-kind young core, a futuristic Penny and Shaq ready to restore the glory of basketball in Philadelphia. The wonder from down under racked up accolades, Rookie of the Year, All-Star appearances, and All-NBA honors. 3 years in, he looked like the real thing. It wasn't a mirage in the desert. There's proof of concept, real evidence that this guy could be a superstar. But there's no bigger story than the Wonderkin taking his first fall. That Atlanta playoff series was anything but normal, an unforgettable storm of confusion. There was a passivity in Simmons' game that wasn't typically present, seemingly motivated by the star's struggles at the free throw line. But so what? Every star has a bad series or two. Lace him back up next year and get back after it. Unfortunately, this wasn't just another star. This was a pre-ordered phenom. He had been declared an exceptional talent who was head and shoulders above his competition. So the moment he failed to separate himself substantially, he was no longer Ben Simmons. We saw it more with the gifted lefty than any other talent that had to endure the athlete sensationalism industrial complex. Athletes as humans need room to fail. They need opportunities to fall flat on their face, adjust, and take another swing. Instead, some are suffocated with hopes that weren't even theirs, forced to fill enormous shoes and chastised the second they struggled to do so. For Simmons, this unfortunate playoff series was more or less the end. He's still playing, still contributing over in Brooklyn as an unorthodox creator with two-way talent, but the days of the Fresh Prince of Philadelphia are long gone, with the door slammed shut and locked. Zion's high school mixtape was a guilty pleasure watch. It was awe-inspiring, beyond captivating, and jaw-dropping in nature, but it was also cartoonishly cruel. He was an imposing titan trying to rip the rim off every basket in the country, routinely embarrassing regular high school athletes in the process. It was so absurd, many wondered if he'd be able to keep that momentum at Duke. But a show-stopping one-and-done campaign eliminated any doubt. It went beyond the gravity-defying dunks or the blocks against corner three-point shooters. Williamson's 1 year in Durham was the most efficient single season in recent college basketball memory. 22 points per game on 68% from the field, with a ridiculous 40.8 PER. The guy was in a league of his own, toying with the best in the country like they were his little brothers in a game of pool basketball. From October to July, there was no doubt who would be taken first overall in the upcoming draft. The Pelicans couldn't have been more excited to grab the generational prospect, but immediately after his name was called, the problems began. Excessive lower body injuries and routine battles to stay on the court plagued Zion before he played his first game in the league, and they've stuck with him to this day. When he's on the court, he's been everything New Orleans has hoped for, a daunting jumbo playmaker with historically unprecedented ability as a finisher. Unfortunately, he's just not out there that much. Frustration is one thing. It's okay to want more from a talent you believe in or a player you support, but we could all acknowledge the coverage of Zion has been unfair at best and overbearing more likely than not. The kid's 24 years old. He can't even rent a car yet, but he's been ridiculed, derided, and nearly written off. Rather than crucifying what we once coronated, let's give the process some time and watch the story unfold. There's a restless ambition deep in the hearts of everyone inside the basketball world, an unrelenting desire to recreate greatness as soon as it's found, or to duplicate excellence the moment we stumble upon it. It's a human impulse, but in our fervor, we can overlook hurdles or underestimate challenges. That 2003 high school wonder was a special talent, a truly unreplicable cosmic event, the perfect blend of otherworldly talent and ahead of his years in maturity. It was a wonder to watch and a privilege to keep up with, but it can't be a precedent. Young, ascending stars that stand out amongst their competition can't be expected to maintain or even accelerate the momentum. They aren't LeBron, they're just them. They're Andrew Wiggins, NBA champion and high-level two-way contributor, Tyreek Evans, unorthodox point forward with a throwback style, and Zion Williamson, a still developing, still maturing, uber-talented specimen whose career has yet to finish twisting and turning. Not every number one prospect has to reinvent the game, and no teenager should be expected to show us something we've never seen before. Okay, fine, we'll address the unicorn in the room. Victor Wembanyama faced one of the first incarnations of the global hype train, the lanky, endlessly tall, and ridiculously skilled Frenchman with proven dominance over grown men. It was one of those lotteries that felt as big as the finals. Everyone waited impatiently, hoping they'd get a chance to develop this one-of-a-kind alien, and then Pop and the Spurs got another chance at a dynasty. It's early, way too early to be declarative about anything or emphatic about results, but we all see it. We all see the nonsensical ball skills, the feat of an athletic wing, and the defensive intensity and timing of a perennial DPOY. Who knows, maybe Wemby will materialize into what many have already assumed he is. Maybe France's greatest existential threat since nihilism really will redefine the game and inspire a generation. But don't make his accomplishments the next global wonder's burden. It's time we learn from the tragedies of the past. Enough of the too much, too fast, too soon. It's not our job to write the stories, only to frame the ones that have already spoken themselves into existence. We don't need to find the next LeBron, they need to find themselves. Now let's stop getting in the way of developing stars and aspiring talents doing the same.